Imagine a person who organized 6 million plus African people globally in the 10s and in the 20s without a cell phone, without the internet, without a laptop, nothing. Just himself and his passion. Imagine a person who inspired a new crop of leaders in the 20th century. We're talking about Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya. We're also talking about Malcolm X of America. In fact, Malcolm X's parents were part of the Garvey movement. Elijah Poole, before he became Elijah Muhammad, used to be in the Garvey movement. Dr. King has cited many times that he was inspired by Garvey. This man is literally the greatest African leader we have ever had in the history of this world. If it's not because of him, I don't think we would be here today. Imagine a person who organized 25,000 people. He filled up 25,000 people in Madison Square Garden in a convention called the International Convention of Negroes of the World. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about the one and only, the Honorable Provisional President of Afrika, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Peace and blessings, everybody. I go by the name Sensical Sense. Welcome to Does It Make Sense, the show that inspires you to think. Well, this episode is special, and I chose this episode to be the first episode because I had to do it for Marcus Garvey. And if Marcus Garvey was a musician, and if my life was a movie, I would choose him to make the soundtrack of the movie. He is literally the essence of my life. So this episode we are going to look at 9 things you should know about Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Number 1, Marcus Garvey was born in 1887 in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica. He married Amy Jacques Garvey and both had 2 children, Marcus Garvey Jr. and Dr. Julius Garvey. He obviously died reportedly of a heart attack in London. He died in June 10th, 1940, which happens to be my birthday. It's very interesting. Number 2, did you know that Marcus Garvey organized 1,000 chapters of his organization, the United Negro Improvement Association? And these 1,000 chapters were scattered all over the world, in America, in Latin America, in Asia, in Europe. This man was literally a Pan-African. That's why he's called the father of Pan-Africanism, because he believed in the organization of black people globally. His idea was we are one people, and his idea was that we do. If one African goes down, we all go down. That's why he's named the father of Pan-Africanism. The UNIA was his movement, the United Negro Improvement Association. He basically, with this organization, he employed thousands and thousands of people in New York City, Harlem. Literally, he was basically the most, in his run in Harlem, I think he was the most powerful person in Harlem. And if he was the most powerful person in Harlem, I agree to the fact that he was one of the most powerful people in New York City during his prime. Number 3, did you know that Marcus Garvey organized 6 million plus African people? Yes, listen, 6 million plus African people all over the world. He did it with no cell phone, no internet, no iPhone, no nothing. He did it with his sheer will and sheer passion. The United Negro Improvement Association is actually the biggest black struggle movement of all time. There is no movement that has ever organized 6 million plus African people. Yo, he's the one. This guy is the one. And that's why, before I go to the next fact, today's Does It Make Sense is, does it make sense that a person who has done all of these things, does it make sense that his history is hidden? That his history is sort of a secret? Not only to the world, but most likely to the African people. Number 4, did you know that Marcus Garvey was the founder of the red, black and green flag? The red, black and green flag was the flag that represented us. Garvey saw that we don't have a united flag as an African people. In fact, there was a song at that time that was ridiculing African people for not having a flag. And so when he made this flag, he made it in that particular order. Not green, red and it's red, black and green. RBG. Red is on top of black. Black is on top of green. There's a reason why it's in that order. Let me tell you why. Red symbolizes African blood. You see, not many African people have the original complexion of the original man, which is the black man. Not many people have the pigmentation of darkness. Okay? So the red means that we are all sharing the African blood. It doesn't matter whether you're light skin, whether you're dark skin, whether you're caramel, whether you're a mixture of, it doesn't matter. As long as you're African and as long as you have the African blood, we are one. The next one is black. Black represents the original pigmentation of the original man, which is the black man. Green represents the African economy and African wealth. There's a reason why he made red on top of black. The reason why black is on top of green. Because no matter what we do, our African blood is always on top of pigmentation. We always fight who's darker than who, who's lighter than who. But Garvey's idea was, it doesn't matter who's lighter, who's darker. At the end of the day, we are Africans and we share the same African blood. That's the genius of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Number 5, did you know that 75% of African flags, and this is very interesting, 75% of African flags either have the 3 of the red, black and green colors or the 2/3 of the red, black and green colors. I mean, think about it. Just take a map. Look at Kenya. Kenya's flag has the red, black and green colors. Uganda has yellow, black and red. Green is missing, but it has 2 of the 3 colors. Look at Malawi. Malawi has both. Malawi has actually all red, black, and green flag. Look at South Sudan. It's the same, red, black, and green. South Africa has actually all of them red, black, and green, but they added other colors. But at the end of the day, the red, black, and green is there. So when you look at 75% of African flags, they have the 3. 75%. They have either all of the 3 red, black and green colors or at least 2 of the 3 colors. Did you know that Marcus Garvey is not the first Pan-African? I mean, Marcus Garvey is the father of Pan-Africanism, but he's not the first Pan-African. There were people before him. There was Bishop Henry McNeill Turner, and there was even Martin Delany, who came before Garvey. In fact, Booker T. Washington was also a Pan-African. You see, Garvey, people think he's the first because he actualized Pan-Africanism and he did it big, but he's not the first. But the reason why we call Marcus Garvey the father of Pan-Africanism and not the names I just mentioned is because Marcus Garvey, listen, Garvey is like let me see, Garvey is like the Michael Jordan of Pan-Africanism. Or let me say, Garvey is like the LeBron of Pan-Africanism. I mean, he didn't invent it, he's just the best at it. Number 7, did you know that Marcus Garvey is the reason why we have powerful and influential 20th century black leaders? I mean, let's look at it. Malcolm's parents used to work in the Garvey movement. And I think Malcolm, in his quest of being the leader we know today, him being who we know today, is greatly inspired by Garvey and is greatly inspired by his parents working in the Garvey movement. Let's look at Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah has said endlessly that he studied Garvey and Garvey is one of his mentors. Let's look at Jomo Kenyatta also. Jomo Kenyatta has cited Garvey as one of his inspirations. Now, but this is interesting though. When Dr. King, after Malcolm was assassinated, Dr. King went to Jamaica to go see Garvey's grave. And when he came back, he said a very interesting thing. He said that Garvey gave black people personhood and gave black people a sense of manhood. And when you study Dr. King post Malcolm's death, and when you study Dr. King before Malcolm's death, you'll realize that Dr. King really changes his demeanor and his message. Literally, the Garvey spirit of unapologetically Africanness entered Dr. King after Malcolm died and after he visited Marcus Garvey's grave. I mean, just look at how Dr. King was speaking after Garvey's death. Like the Garvey spirit entered in him. And what's interesting is that these white people, they never highlight that. They never highlight the Dr. King who was really speaking like basically he started speaking like Malcolm. He started speaking like Garvey. They never highlight that, but they always highlight the "I have a dream" speech. They always highlight those speeches that he did before Malcolm died. So that was really interesting. And also, there are many people who were inspired by Garvey. Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria, of course, Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. Basically, I'll be very shocked if the leaders who came up in the 20th century were not inspired by Garvey. I'll be very shocked. And even if you look at the term "black is beautiful," it was coined by Garvey. It was popularized by Garvey. You know, listen, it is so crazy that every person I socialize with, most of them don't know who Garvey is. Like, it is so crazy. It is so insane that we don't know this guy. And that's why I asked, does it make sense that this person did all these things and we don't even know much of his history? So, and like many guys don't even know his name. Number 8, did you know that Marcus Garvey's organization, the UNIA, had a newspaper called the Negro World? The thing about this newspaper, it was a newspaper that was showing black pride in a very good light. One thing that's very special about this newspaper is that it was banned in Africa during that time. You have to understand that during that time, it was when Africa was being colonized. And of course, it was banned by the colonialists because you don't expect the people who you're colonizing to read a newspaper that is so Pan-Africanized, that is so empowering. They'll start getting ideas on how they can overthrow you. So literally, it was banned in Africa. And in fact, if you were caught with a Garvey newspaper, a Negro World newspaper, you could be arrested or even worse. Number 9, the final one. Marcus Garvey was jailed in 1923. He was convicted of a mail fraud charge. What's so interesting is that Garvey didn't need a lawyer. He fired his lawyer during the court day and he represented himself. But unfortunately, he was jailed for 2 years and 9 months. The reason why I'm saying that this charge was basically bogus, they planted evidence on him because the evidence was a empty mail. It was an empty envelope. Basically, Garvey was innocent, and in fact, the witnesses were told and they were orchestrated by the prosecutors to lie because they knew very well the case was bogus. They set him up, and which is why he was jailed for 2 years and 9 months. He was supposed to serve a longer jail term, but after 2 years and 9 months, he was released by President Calvin Coolidge. His sentence was commuted, but he was told that as soon as you step outside that jail, you have to be deported back to Jamaica. And so when he stepped out of that jail, that's exactly what he did. He was deported to Jamaica. So after the 9 did you knows, let me ask you a question. Does it make sense that this guy did all of those things and his history is hidden, is secretive, and most Africans barely even know his name? I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why he was jailed for a crime he didn't commit. You have to understand, this person was the most powerful black person at that time. Organizing 1,000 chapters, 6 million Africans globally, wasn't a joke. He was a threat to the white power structure. That is why he was set up. And that is why he was deported back to Jamaica, and after he was being and after he was deported, the UNIA ended up collapsing without his leadership. Let me tell you something. When white people see that you're close to becoming big, they'll cut you off. There's a limit they let you go. If you reach a certain limit, they'll cut you off. And Garvey exceeded that limit. They had to cut him off. It's sad, but it happened. And so, does it make sense? Has already been answered. It makes sense that these white people cut him off. It makes sense to them. It doesn't make sense to us because we needed him. It makes sense to them because he was a threat to their power structure. My point of view today is very simple. Be proud to be African. Never disassociate yourself with a continent that is the richest in the world, that is the father and mother of civilization, that is the father and mother of all religions and of all humanity. Be proud of being an African. And the only way we can keep Marcus Garvey's legacy on is by being proud to be African and by doing a global African union. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Remember, think before it's illegal. See you on the other side.